Hey guys, welcome to this episode of Context is King. I'm Rebecca Brayton, and with me as always is WatchMojo founder and CEO Ashkan Karbasrushan to discuss the Bezos divorce. But more importantly, what's happening with their businesses. But anyway, so MacKenzie Bezos is graciously giving Jeff Bezos 75% of Amazon. Is that right? Am I wording that?
Well, that's the wording that's really fascinating in her tweet. So by the way, she's now worth a cool $35 billion, which if you think about it,
Isn't that much?
No, but is a lot. But what you think about it is like it's lower than it was. Because it wasn't like Jeff gave her this. This was hers to begin with, right? So what's interesting is the wording was like, I am giving Jeff 75% of my shares or whatever. And there was a few in like the press that were wording it as if like Jeff was kind enough to give. First of all, let's be honest. If Jeff would not have agreed without putting up a fight, she would have gone for far more, right? So there's that. But it does goes to show that it was kind of repeating that, look, Amazon has been around for 20-ish years, but she played a part in building this business. It may not have been maybe in traditional roles, a VP of this or like a C-level of that, but she absolutely, I assure you, played a bigger part than anybody can understand. And so...
I mean, obviously you have an interesting perspective on this because you founded WatchMojo with your wife.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah.
And to this day, I think not just her, I mean, I don't really want to make this about Christine and myself, but the parallels, like to this day, I'll meet other, especially female entrepreneurs, and like Christine, it's like, oh, you work with your husband? And I'm like, she runs the company. I could sit here and pontificate about stuff because she's part of the team that runs the day-to-day.
I would just like to sidebar. At the Independent Spirit Awards a couple years ago, they were talking to Annette Bening, and obviously she's married to Warren Beatty. And they were like, hey, sweetie, who are you wearing? Do you do movies too? To Warren Beatty.
Oh, okay.
And I thought that was hilarious.
That was hilarious,
so
yeah.
That's how you should do it.
And I think there is this, I call it latent sexism. You know, there's a lot of people.
It's not really latent.
But what I'm trying to say is it's not malicious. It's not meant to, but it's just this assumption that it's all the guy, it's all the male. So I thought that was really, really interesting. And like, you know, a couple years ago when we started to recruit and add to our executive ranks, to me, Christine was always basically co-CEO, but I was like, just to kind of make it clear, I said, well, she's the editor-in-chief and she's the president, because I do feel like there's a lot of people that come along and they just assume that when they see a husband-wife duo, I think in their case, what probably happened is at some point when they wanted to do an IPO, it made sense for there to be professional execs. I remember early on, I would ask venture capitalists who would show an interest in investing in WatchMojo. Once I got to kind of know them and comfortable enough, I would say, I was like, hey, look, what do you think about the dynamics of Christine and I ultimately, you know, dividing and conquer? We have a big team, lots of other people. And, you know, most people were like, oh, there's no issues. One of them was honest enough. He goes, look, to be honest with you, most VCs aren't going to like that. And I go, why? He goes, you know, ultimately we feel like you will always be kind of united. And he kind of left it at that, you know, as if like you won't make the right business decision. When I was like, Christine and I disagree. You know, Christine is super critical and she has the best judgment I know. It's like if she agreed with me just by default, like I would be like, who are you? Who kidnapped you? But as I got to know and study entrepreneurs and study investors and talk to a lot of people, the modus operandi of an investor eventually is to divide partners and be like, pit one against the other to try to get more power, get their way. And I think they just don't like the dynamics that's probably going to be harder with a husband and wife duo. So here I feel it just goes to show that, yeah, it was like, hey, it's this is mine, I've earned it, but for whatever reason, sure, he could have, you know, certain interests and he could vote on my behalf and he could have the lion's share because it's a good sum. I think she added something like 35,000 followers on Twitter, which at a net worth of $35 billion is an expensive user acquisition model. But anyway, that's a bad joke.
I mean, I still think it's really interesting that people like Warren Buffett and Sheryl Sandberg say that the most important business decision you can make is who you marry.
Far and away. I'll tell you this. WatchMojo would not exist for many reasons. Absolutely, like a whole 15 key things. But, you know, for 6 years when we were losing money, Christine did not once say like, go get a job. Why are we doing this? She was like, it's all good. Like, see the forest through the trees. And when I look back early on, that really, really, really was a key thing, that I didn't have that pressure. Not just pressure financial, which I definitely did, but I didn't have that pressure. She wasn't like, oh, I want a jewelry or car. I mean, not to play to stereotypes, but none of that, right? And it's funny because ultimately, I feel like, you know, even when we went out and got a mortgage, it was like we got a mortgage to keep the company afloat, and it was never about what was in it for us already, but it was never like she had that pressure, and I feel like without that, I understand why most entrepreneurs go back. There was a tweet that I saw, I think Kevin O'Leary. Yeah, Kevin O'Leary on the Shark Tank was like, if you ever want a company to become profitable, just have a busy mother run it. And it's really true. When Christine, after a few years...
That's one thing I'll agree with Kevin O'Leary on.
Look, Kevin O'Leary says a lot of bullshit, but he does say a few things that are interesting or insightful or funny or whatever. But one thing I will say is I was also not weak, but I wasn't strong enough as an exec to sometimes be like, no, we're not going to do that. That makes no sense, or we should do this. After Christine, a few years, she went on mat leave, and she was still involved. But when she came back, it's not a coincidence that I really told myself, like, you got to turn this into a business. This is like an expensive hobby where you have some friends recording other friends doing shit, putting it on this YouTube site that is, what is this? Like, so when she came, it wasn't like she put any pressure, but I was like, yeah, like, this has to make sense. Like, if coming out of my mouth, this makes no sense, then probably it's not going to make sense in the business. So all to say, I think Jeff Bezos could have had a very lengthy, expensive, messy divorce, and in the end, he gets to keep most of what they built together. So hopefully their kids aren't going to be scarred, but they probably will be because they're loaded and money messes people up.
Right. Fair. Fun. I am still confused why she is giving up so much control, though.
Well, to be perfectly candid, I like to put myself in people's shoes. I think he could have fought and lost because of Washington State.
But then a lot of dirty laundry.
But a lot would come out, and I think she's at the point where she's like, you know what, life's short. Even if even if in the end I accept less, this is more money, good riddance. Like in the end, Jeff's thought with his other head,
Yeah.
And you can say whatever you want, and it goes back to other shows where I've said it's all about managing temptation and all that. I think she was like, I'll take the high road, and just for our kids, we already have enough junk exposed in like National Enquirer and whatnot. What's the point of fighting? And if it's like to win the peace, it's like a legal settlement. Like you sometimes you'll fight till the death on principle. But like if you think about it, she would have fought for years to get 35 billion or 70 billion. I know it's twice as much, but what are you going to do with 35 billion?
Lots.
But that's exactly, she has all that. She can do whatever she wants.
Okay, not to also play into stereotypes, but do you think the guy would have ever done that? He would always fight for the extra money.
No, because men, when I was at the Honda Indy 300 in Australia, Surfer's Paradise, we did a test drive, and all the drivers were female. And, as we're finishing up, she brought it up because I was like curious, but she was like, I won't do the accent, but she was like, notice how all the test drivers are female. It was basically that the male drivers would push and crash, because men are crazier in that. Like women are crazy in different ways. Everybody's crazy. But I feel like men are just wired, unfortunately, in a different way, where Jeff probably takes the higher road, but Jeff probably feels like he built it. Like she was there as a teammate, which is, he will not admit it, I'm guessing.
That's why they're getting divorced.
Sorry?
That's why they're getting divorced.
That's why they're getting divorced. But I think she's like, this isn't worth the fight. We have kids. I'm going to take the high road. Whether or not he would have done it, no, but she's probably better than he is.
Well, she's my new hero. Let us know what you guys think in the comments, and we will see you next time.